Okay, we're rolling.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick of heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. It's from the Gates of Prayer, the New Union prayer book, and it's my favorite. It's a Jewish prayer book. And we were talking just now about Kennedys, and Lauren mentioned who was the mother of the boy that had a leg amputated. The cat's playing. And that was Joan and Ted's boy. And at one point, I used to go to Dr. Doom, the chiropractor, and his receptionist...
Is this in New York City?
No, it's Toledo. He's Toledo. And there was a thing on the desk where you pay or whatever, and it said for Rosie. And roses are my favorite thing. I write about talking roses. I had my own rose bush when I was a child. And I named every rose after a family member. And I remember running into my grandmother's kitchen, and I go, Baba, Baba, Uncle Eddie died. And the neighbor thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even know he was sick. And my grandmother goes, no, that's just her rose, Uncle Eddie died. But Rosie was the granddaughter of the woman that worked at Doom's office. And there was a thing about Rosie. And they needed money. Rosie had cancer. And it's a pretty involved story, but they had to amputate her leg. And I had worked with children who had cancer. It was one of my first jobs at Yale New Haven Hospital. And I just felt for Rosie. And I became her secret friend, even though we did meet. She was in Toledo Hospital, the thing, and in comes the Kennedy boy, Patrick Kennedy, and he made a special visit to her.
In Toledo Hospital?
Yes.
Why?
Because she had a leg amputated. And he wanted to, be there for her and talk to her about, and she didn't even know. She was there chewing gum and they had her on the news, and she had no clue who the Kennedys were. She's like 6 years old.
And Patrick's the one with the amputated leg?
Yes,
wow.
And he came to Toledo. And I could have met him. However, I was ill. I was in I was in a near-fatal car accident. And so I didn't get to meet him. But Rosie died. What happened was Rosie's cancer came back, and I wanted to meet her. And I gave her a rose. I wrote about her, and I have letters that I sent to her. I don't have them with me, but when Lauren mentioned the Kennedy boy with the leg off, I immediately thought of how he visited Toledo, and in particular, Rosie. So I went to visit Rosie, and I knew she was going to die, and her mother was a real bitch. Her mother was somebody, if you have a child who's dying or something, the mother is the focus of attention, very frequently. And this woman craved attention. And she was promoting her daughter's illness as a way to gain attention for herself. And I love looking at that cat. However, what happened, Rosie did die. She went into remission for a while, but her chemo and what they were doing to her was really, really bad. And she died. And I wanted to write to Patrick Kennedy to tell him, and the family needed some money too, because it was very costly and the different things. I got help for her, the mother, I got help for the family, but still, it's just really debilitating. And what the dumb thing is, Rosie got one of those Make-A-Wish thing, if you're a child and you're very ill, you're dying. and she got to go. She wanted to go. Her mother wanted to go back to California where they used to live and take it to her. And no, Rosie wanted to take a Disney cruise. So that was Rosie's wish. And she wanted to take her helper, you know, like the nurse attendant thing that was working with her. She wanted to take her, and her mother got pissed. But Rosie could relate better to the helper than to her mother.
What year is all this?
This was, gosh,
Had to be the
a
early
decade
80s?
ago, I would
Okay.
say. And so that's when, too, Cardi was still president, and Cardi liked to hang with the Kennedys.
This last time?
The time, you know, when his
Yeah.
last Ford, whatever.
When he was fighting with everyone?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But he liked the Kennedys, and also the Kennedys came to Toledo because there was a race on the Maumee. And therefore, I knew also that the other Kennedy was living in New Haven doing work, and I could have written, and I thought,
What
you
other
know,
Kennedy?
one of the other Kennedy cousin things.
Oh, okay.
And one of Bobby Kennedy's kids. And I thought, you know, I want to really write to him, and I want to tell him what happened to Rosie, because he would have remembered her at that point. And Pat would have remembered Rosie. But I just never did that. And I'm sorry I didn't. Maybe it's not too late, because I kept all the work that they did, all the photos from the Blade and everything about
I'm
Rosie.
sure somebody ended up contacting him.
No.
You
No.
don't think? Okay.
I know not, because I kept in good touch with the family, and I mean, you know, my friend and Margaret. And Margaret had the best Christmas movie I've ever seen about Madeline Kahn was in, and it was about people for at Christmas time. If you want to commit suicide, you call the number at Christmas time, and it was just a riot. Funny film. But that's it. That's my story about the Kennedy, Patrick Kennedy, and how he came to Toledo.
I thought you were going to talk about.
Karen, but you brought up Patrick, and
Yeah.
I thought I want to talk about whom? About,
He was a good soccer player, Patrick was.
yeah, and then you lost his leg, and
No,
Joan.
when he was legless.
Oh, that's
I
right.
had a
he
boyfriend
got-
that went to, it was Deerfield was the school he went to, and he played soccer with him.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was a preparatory school.
Yeah, prep school.
Pre-college, right?
Yeah,
And he'd hop around on that one leg, and he actually was a really good
Special
soccer
Olympics are
player.
so neat.
It wasn't
and-
Special Olympics.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
I mean people who learn to use their body in different ways after parts of it are
Yeah.
gone. My father had a leg amputated, but his wife didn't want, and he wanted to, I got close to my father. It was a terrible thing that happened to my dad. And I know we're here to talk about other things, but these are personal memories. And I read the entry because it's how we're remembering. And there's death around us and the people in our lives. And the person, one of the people, of course my father, we all have them. And my father and I were not close, but there came a time he married a woman who had a house. My mother always wanted a house, but my father, and I'm looking at you, how are you catching me? Am I supposed to be looking right at the camera?
No, not necessarily. No, just
Okay.
comfortable. As you're leaning forward, I'm sometimes zooming out, and then when you sit up,
And I
sometimes I'll
should.
zoom in, and I'm zooming in and out because I noticed when we watch documentaries.
Yeah.
I noticed on that one, the Maisels,
yeah.
they would kind of zoom a little bit in on Truman, and then they zoom a little bit out.
You're Archer, remember?
Now, if you can just talk with a little lisp, and
Oh, I could, because you know what I did? I lisped on purpose when I was
You
a
get that hot
kid.
black leather hat, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
No. I went to a Catholic school, and the kids couldn't pronounce the TH. It's third grade. And I'd go, in my building, the third floor, we know where that is. And therefore I could th, and they're duh, and I'm going th. And then when I got really upset, I would lisp, but I did it on purpose too sometimes. But if I'm really nervous, it comes out lisping.